Kevin Harlan here. This Friday, the NBA on Prime crew is back with another thrilling NBA doubleheader. It tips off with Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers, taking on Jalen Brunson and the Knicks at the Garden. Then SGA and the champion Thunder visit Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves. If you're not a Prime member, just sign up for a free 30-day trial. The Sixers and Knicks, the Thunder and Timberwolves. Coverage starts Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, only on Prime. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Hey, this is Michael Rosenbaum.
Hey guys, Tom Welling. Look, we've both played heroes.
And we both played villains. But in the real life, there are no reshoots, no stuntmen, or sequels.
We all make mistakes. We're all human.
Making one bad decision can not only land you in jail, but could also put yourself and other people around you in serious risk.
Be smart, make a plan, catch a ride, stay put.
Don't let a high moment turn into a lifetime of regret. This holiday season, be your own hero. If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI.
Paid for by NHTSA.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on this episode, we're going to present our breakout candidates for the 2026 minor league baseball season. We usually do this before every year, and we're going to break out or select one hitter or one pitcher that we think is a breakout candidate coming into next season. Now, if you subscribe to our Substack, oriolesontheverge.substack.com, you likely got a little bit of a taste of what we're going to talk about tonight as we present one hitter and one pitcher that we think are poised to have big years in 2025. And usually what we look for here is players that might be on our radar to some extent and then maybe getting a little bit of national coverage, but still have not perhaps taken that big step forward in their development. But we think that the coming season is going to be when they do just that. Now, before we get into our 2026 breakout picks, I want to go back and look at 2025 because it was an interesting year. All three of us made our picks. And I think we all did, or at least two of us did okay on the pitchers. The hitters, not quite as well, but our clear winner here is Nick. Thomas Sosa was his breakout hitter, with Levi Wells, one of the biggest breakouts in the Orioles farm system, hitter or pitcher, being his pitcher breakout candidate for the year. Bob had Ellis Cuevas and Chase Alsop. I had Eber Cartaya as my breakout for pitchers, which kind of came close, but then Tavian Josenberger was my hitter, and Josenberger struggled a little bit with injuries in 2025. So, Nick, how are you feeling going into 2026? Can you give us a repeat?
Hope so. Hopefully all three of us do better because it means the organization is stronger. No, I will say that I'm still on the Ellis Cuevas train for 2026. So we can hold that one over. The young, we were talking about this before we came on, the young international guys, maybe you get a 2-year window to claim victory there. Chase also, hey, we were fed Chase also content from national media every week, all going into that season. So maybe a bounce back candidate. Who knows? But yeah, I like the Levi Wells train. I'm not hopping off anytime soon.
I was actually tanking so that I could have the first pick in this breakout prospect prediction show. No, Cuevas, like you said, with these international guys, like you could be a year or two or even 3 years ahead of a potential breakout because they're super young and sometimes they take some time to adjust. Sometimes they don't. Like Aaron Estrada, I feel like was like kind of broke out and then he really broke out this past year. So they could also come in stages. And Cuevas looked like he was poised to break out because he was supposed to start the season in Delmarva. And then I think he ended up on the injured list for quite a while there to begin the year. But yeah, I got nothing on Chase Alsop. I guess I won't be picking JT Quinn or Joseph Giroux tonight, just to not jinx them.
Yeah, and I'll just say for my own picks, Cartaya, I think, kind of had the year I expected him to have to some extent, with Josenberger just never really healthy last year and didn't break through in the way that I hoped. But we'll turn the page now to 2026. And I want to go back to Nick to start this one out because, Nick, you put our reports together, wrote them up over at Substack, and we had our hitters article drop about 2 weeks ago, and then our pitchers article dropped last week. So again, if you subscribe to our Substack, you've seen these, but tonight we're going to go a little bit more in depth on them. So I'll start with you, Nick. Focusing first on your hitter, who are your breakout candidates for 2026?
Well, speaking of the international players, we're all taking big swings tonight, I feel like, with at least one guy each. I'm taking two big swings with mine, though, and I'm going to start with another young international prospect and outfielder Jordan Sanchez. Like he's going to play all year in 2026 as a 20-year-old. He should start the year in Delmarva, which would hopefully set himself up for a good promotion to high A. Again, still at just 20 years old if everything goes well, but yeah, I know we've talked about him a lot because we thought we'd see him a lot earlier than we did. We had to wait until that final week of last season, but still, this kid torches the DSL in 2024, the 167 WRC plus, 6 home runs, just a 20% strikeout rate and a 15% walk rate. And he entered the organization like a pretty sought after Cuban prospect because the Orioles have been able to land some pretty high, at least highly sought after Cuban-born prospects the last couple of years. They leave a little the international bonus pool money available, and they were able to grab Cesar Prieto at what was supposedly a big discount, and then Jordan Sanchez was only like $500,000. I imagine he probably would have got more, but you can't predict when guys are going to defect and become eligible out of Cuba. So, but yeah, he went to the FCL last year and raked again, a 153 WRC plus across 54 games, 24 extra base hits. The walk rate jumped up to 16%. The strikeout rate did jump up to 29%, but I think we see like a happy medium there between that 20 and 29% next year. But he does a lot of things well so far. He hits the ball hard. He hits the ball in the air. Very frequently, I think he has one of the higher like pull air rates among Orioles minor league hitters the last year. So I don't know if we have any exit velo numbers from last year, but I know when he was in the DSL, he was up to like the 108s, 109s. His 90th percentile was like super high as well. But yeah, and when we got to see him in Delmarva those last couple of days, it was strong. I think John Mioli noted this in his Baseball America chat. I think somebody asked about Jordan Sanchez, and I think he said he had a scout tell him that Sanchez looked just like out of place initially. I forget the exact wording John used, but Sanchez looked rough those first couple of games, and then they sat him, and then they started him again the next night, which is the final game of the season, I believe, and he hits those 2 home runs, 1 pull side, 1 oppo, and the scout told John he looked completely different that night. So yeah, I feel like it's the gif, the guy holding the girl's hand and he's looking back at the other girl. Like Thomas Sosa, I'm holding Thomas Sosa's hand, but I'm looking back at Jordan Sanchez for 2026.
Quite literally, yeah. That's perfect. Yeah, probably just trying to do too much, knowing that he only had a few games at the end of the year to try to make an impression of full season ball. I'm guessing there, and they sat him down and said, "Hey, just play your game," and then he hits 2 bumps, and it's pretty much his game. So, yeah, I'm a huge Jordan Sanchez fan. I think he goes overlooked just because he's too old for the level by being like 6 months older than most of the other people at the DSL and the FCL. But yeah, power hitting outfielder. Can't have enough of those types of prospects. So looking forward to him.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to a full, healthy season from Jordan Sanchez. And one thing I'll say is that with him being in Delmarva, most likely to start next year, I do think the power might be a little slow to come around the early stages of the year, knowing that is a tough ballpark for left-handed hitters to hit in. But I could see him really putting up big numbers there over the first couple months of the year. And then by July, you're maybe looking at him being in Frederick. There's a lot we still don't know about Sanchez because we have not seen him for more than 58 games in the season. But from what we have seen, a lot of power from the left side, solid athleticism in the outfield. And if he's able to cut the strikeouts back this season, I think he'll be poised for a big breakout.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be as extreme as like Sosa and some of the Steven Martinez. Like, I don't think he's going to be that extreme. I think he's. I don't know if he has the higher ceiling of those three. I don't know if you guys would have a ranking there or not, but I don't think he probably has the highest ceiling. But I think Sanchez would be honestly like percentage to click. Obviously, at this point, it's still very low, but I'd maybe give him the highest odds to, I think, put it all together. Maybe that's just off the top of my head, just thinking about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you can dream on Thomas Sosa's power, and you can dream on Steven Martinez, like the complete package that he could potentially put together, including notably the power. I think maybe Sanchez might end up having the lowest raw power of the three, but he's getting to it already, like in games, and he's able to consistently just hit doubles, triples, home runs. Like he seems more consistent getting his skills translated into games, like I said, and just like, I don't know, he seems more refined.
Yeah, I agree. And now, maybe this isn't fair to Martinez because he got to Delmarva at a pretty young age last year, and he is younger than Sanchez, but he really struggled there. So I feel like at this point in time, Sanchez being a couple of years older is a little bit ahead of him. So you feel safer with the floor of Sanchez versus Martinez. With Sosa, and I think this is where seeing Sanchez over the full year is going to clear up a lot of things for us, because we've had the opportunity to see Thomas Sosa a lot in the last 2 years, even with the injuries he's had. So we know what that all-around athleticism looks like. We know what the arm in the outfield looks like. We know what the speed on the bases looks like. We haven't had as much of a chance to see that with Sanchez yet. But it does feel like, and I agree with Bob, that maybe Sanchez is doing a little bit better job to this point, or there's a reason to believe that coming in the next season, he will do a little bit better job of getting to that raw power in game. Whereas with Sosa, you're kind of waiting for it to click. And so far it hasn't yet, because honestly, I think it's been because he's been one of the youngest players at the level that he's been at for each of the last 2 years. But still, the swing and miss tendency, some of the concerns that you have about Sosa's hit tool have really been on display.
All right, do you want me to go pitcher, or do you want to continue with hitters?
Go ahead and stick with you for the pitcher.
All right, my pitcher is, I'm going super deep here, because why not? Let's have some fun with this. It is December, and I'm going way down to the Dominican Summer League, the riskiest group of prospects, because why not? But I'm going Kelvin Zapata. He's a left-handed pitcher, and I know this is, again, we get the 2-year window here. But we get the video with the DSL now, and so like we can see the exit velos, the pitch velos. You can see pitch location. You can see how they carry themselves on the mound. So honestly, like this has become like one of my favorite things to do during the season, especially like with the DSL starting later. We get to a point where it's like we've talked about everybody and their starts, and then we get this whole new group of prospects here. And so it's fun to just dive into those guys a little bit and kind of try to identify the breakouts. Like what other show or blog or anybody's going to be talking about Starlin Miesas in the Dominican Summer League? Literally nobody. So I like to identify these guys early on. And this one, not as risky as like a complete no-name guy that's going to pop, but because Zapata was signed last year, 2025, still this year technically, international signing class, he was the highest paid pitcher in the Orioles class, not overall, just the Orioles class. Got, I think, just under $300,000. So he was their top arm. He's a 6-foot lefty, 6'1" lefty. And I know the early reports on him from what's the name at Baseball America that does all the international
Ben Badler.
stuff. Ben Badler. I know he noted a few times how when the Orioles first started scouting Zapata, he was in like the upper 80s from the left side, and then by the time the Orioles signed him, he was 95. I think he touched 96 this year with a slider that already gets swing and miss that scouts love, and a changeup. So he's already got that. He's got the velo, sure. A lot of these guys do. But with a young arm like Zapata, when you already have feel for multiple breaking balls and you're already throwing your changeup and scouts are already taking note of that pitch, like I think that says a lot about his potential. But yeah, and the numbers, like they're pretty solid. It was a 4.62 ERA, which, Dominican Summer League is what it is, across 39 innings. But the 27% strikeout rate was good. A lot of ground balls. He did walk 22% of guys, which I know is an astronomical number, but it's a young kid. He's got the velo. It's already increasing. He's got the multiple secondaries. I think he was named as one of the top pitching prospects in the Dominican Summer League league-wide this year by Baseball America. I don't know. I think he's only 17 still. I think he'll be 18 by the time the season starts, but he's super young. He's got a ton of room to fill out physically. I don't know. Like these young flamethrowers, a lot of them are going to fizzle out pretty quickly. We've seen a lot of those examples, but if you give these guys time to fill out and adjust to their bodies and everything, you get some hits. And I'm gonna bank on Zapata being the next big hit. Somebody's gonna go down there and see him. He's gonna be throwing 97 next season. He's gonna have some like disgusting sliders, and then he's gonna be the 2026 Esteban Mejia. Maybe not at that level, but still.
I mean, the numbers are almost insignificant, in my opinion, in the DSL, especially for when it's the super young kids, their first time in professional ball, because it's basically high school juniors that are going out there and competing at a professional level. So I think this is the group where you can, like Keeler Morphe's first taste of professional ball was abysmal. And then he came back the following year, and that's when he broke out in a big way. Yeah, this is where you're going to see huge jumps in not only stuff, but control, just poise on the mound, all the little things. Yeah, if it's not Zapata, it'll be some guy they spent $50,000 on that we kind of saw as a reliever this past season. It'll be like Harold Knott or whatever, one of those types of guys. And all of a sudden he's a starter and he's like striking out 30% of batters. And yeah, I like the pick. It might not be the specific name, but I do think there will be some international DSL 2025 players that do break out in 2026 for sure.
Yeah, based on the repertoire alone, this is a good pick. When you have someone that is throwing a fastball from the left side that touches the mid-90s, mixes in the slider and the changeup to go with that, and produces a lot of ground balls, that's a really good sign. The key for me is just going to be to see what kind of strides he makes in terms of his command and what that adjustment looks like, because on paper it does look like a subtle adjustment from the DSL to the FCL. But as we've seen in the past, sometimes the Orioles will hold players back in the DSL for half a season or another full season if they don't feel like they're ready.
Kevin Harlan here. This Friday, the NBA on Prime crew has another thrilling NBA doubleheader. It tips off with an Eastern Conference showdown as Tyrese Maxey and the Philadelphia 76ers head to Madison Square Garden to take on Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks. Then it's Western Conference action. SGA and the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder visit Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. It all comes your way this Friday on Prime. And if you're not a Prime member, that's not a problem. Sign up for a 30-day free trial to get started today. The Sixers and Knicks, the Thunder and Timberwolves. Coverage starts Friday at 6:30 Eastern, only on Prime. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
All right, people, serious question time. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state. That means even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, well, you're wrong. If you're high, they can tell. Your friends can tell. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? You'd be wrong. They can tell too. Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different, and driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
Even if statistically it looks like at least a borderline case for them to get promoted, I don't think that's going to happen with Zapata. I fully expect that he's going to be in the FCL next year, but that kind of underscores how hard of a jump that can be sometimes, even if it doesn't necessarily look that way on paper. So if he's able to go to the FCL next year, and I think build off of what he did last year, maintain the strikeout rate and the ground ball rate, get somewhere close to there and cut the walks back, even if he finishes with an ERA in the mid-4s, I would consider that a huge success.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, I'd much rather have a Zapata type of prospect, a Morphe type of prospect than, no offense, Davy Cruz was fun when he's in the DSL. He's putting up the numbers, but the stuff wasn't exactly the same. And he's still like a solid reliever in single A, like hats off to him. But I think the ceiling is way bigger for Zapata.
Go to Bob now for his picks. And I'm going to start with the hitter because this is a guy that has gotten some buzz nationally over the last couple of years, but because of injuries and then some struggles when he's been on the field, it feels like he hasn't quite broken out yet. But as Bob has pointed out, there's some reasons to believe that this could be the year.
Yeah, Joshua Lorenzo, I'm going with a name you've probably heard multiple times if you've been listening to our show for an amount of time. He's 19. He turns 20 in August, late August 2026. So he'll be 19 for most of the season. He's already 6'3", says 180 on his Fangraphs page. He's already filling out. We know the exit velocities are big already for him. I think he had one impressive home run with Delmarva that was like, oh, that's a flash of what you could potentially be doing soon. And he's just not getting into the power in games quite yet, at least at the single A level when we were able to watch his games. At the FCL, he was walking as much as he was striking out and hitting for some power. Not as much as his DSL days when he first broke out in 2023, but we got a glimpse of it in the FCL, just looking at the box score. And then in Delmarva, you could see he's pretty solid at working the count, 12.5% walk rate. He did strike out 30% of the time, but got to imagine as in his age 18 season, first taste of a full season ball, that's not terrible for a potential power hitter. And yeah, I think the potential, if he's 19 going on 20, starts in Delmarva, finishes the year in Frederick, and I think like every hitter in the Orioles organization, he's going to love hitting there. I think he could be like the international version of a Kobe Mayo type of prospect, where it's hit and power over a glove, but he's not terrible at their base on the left side of the infield from what I've seen. And yeah, if he can just get the ball in the air more, get that game or raw power into game a little bit more often, I think he's a guy that could spike up our prospect list into like the top 20, top 15 range if he's as good as he has the potential to be.
I know he has a lot of hardcore fans within the organization, and yeah, for a lot of those reasons you mentioned, I'm pretty excited to watch him again next year. He had that knee injury that pretty much, wiped out 2024. So that's a critical year of his development and really all these international prospects, because I know it's something we've talked about a lot. And I know whenever we bring up international prospects with John, when he comes on and talks about his list, he brings this up as well a lot, that elimination of short season ball just really they're pushing these kids, especially the younger international players. They're getting pushed to a Delmarva where it's not totally sink or swim, but I feel like it kind of is almost. And it's like, you're not being challenged in the DSL. We need you to move up to the FCL, but you're still an 18-year-old child who's probably never been north of Sarasota, Florida in your life. You're learning to navigate life. Of course, the Orioles do a great job of helping these guys transition, but it's a shock for American-born players, American-born college players that talk about all the time about that transition to pro ball. Our Micah Ashman interview, he talked about that just the other week. So imagine doing that as a teenager from a Spanish-speaking country to, here you go, here's Salisbury, Maryland, child, enjoy life, but also playing in temps that you probably didn't think existed and going up against other teams' versions of their Blake Money and Braxton Bragg when they were still down there in low A. Guys who have SEC, Big 12, ACC pitching experience for 3-4 years. So, yeah, I just think Lorenzo's got the plus power. That's not a question. Yeah, he also moved around a lot defensively. I think if you look at his logs, he played with first, short, third, and left field. So, he's playing all those different positions. He missed 2024. He's getting pushed. He's still flashed. And I think there are two young hitters in the organization who I've heard more about directly from coaches within the organization more than anyone else. And it not just about their impressive hitting abilities, but who they are as people as well and their makeup. It's Joshua Lorenzo and Aaron Estrada. So yeah, I think the baseball card stats weren't good, but what's his nickname? The El Animalito, the little animal. Hopefully he's a bigger animal in 2026. But high risk. But if it clicks, he also got like a massive signing bonus, I'm pretty sure. So Orioles believed in him.
Yeah, the organization really does believe in him, and I agree. I think he's a textbook example of a player that would have benefited from that intermediate step between the FCL and Delmarva. A few other things I'd point out in his stat line: he had a really unlucky home run to fly ball rate. I don't know that I call it unlucky, but it was really low, right around 2%. You have to think that number is going to go up a little bit, and like a lot of young hitters we've seen make that transition from the FCL to full season ball, he just kind of hits the ground on the ball too much when he was making contact last season. So in addition to cutting back the strikeouts, I think hitting the ball hard in the air more consistently is going to allow him to unlock that raw power a little bit more in game. And we'll see what it leads to, but I think this is another example of where maybe some of the old ideas of linear development in the minor leagues need to be thrown out a little bit, because not 5 years ago, but 6, 7 years ago, we probably would have been talking about Lorenzo coming off a solid 2 months at Aberdeen and looking forward to him making his Delmarva debut and not struggling in Delmarva after he was sent there mid-season.
It's a good point. And also, I think sometime during the 2025 season, an article came out from one of the up-and-coming prospect sphere websites that was like, did some research into like the breakouts of these younger prospects. And basically they said the stats are not as important as age to level. Like if an organization is pushing someone up when they're young for the level, that's a bigger good sign than just like dominating at a level you're supposed to be at. Oh, my pitcher. Let's go with my pitcher next. And it's my guy. I think I've had him on my top 50 prospect list longer than any of us. And then I think I got surpassed. I think I might have had him the lowest out of us in our last update. But Blake Money, I think he had a very, very he's had a very interesting career with the Orioles, to be honest with you. Like staying in Delmarva all 2024 and just doing really well and getting better as the season went on. And we're like, where's the promotion? Where's the promotion? Well, he starts 2025 in Aberdeen, and the numbers aren't amazing, but he has a 3.57 ERA, 3.73 FIP over 11 games, 53 innings. Then he gets the bump up to AA, where ultimately he ended up with some pretty good numbers, a 4.21 ERA, 3.69 FIP, 2.95 xFIP, and fantastic strikeout to walk. Like in 2024, he struck out 28% of batters and walked slightly less than 6%, which is amazing. In 2025, between high A and double A, it was right around 30% strikeout rate, 8.5% walk rate, 21.5 K to walk is extremely good. But if you look at his time in double A, he got off to a very slow start, where in his first 25 and 2/3 innings, he had a 6.31 ERA, a 4.73 FIP, gave up 6 home runs and a 274 batting average against. But then over his last 42 and 2/3 innings, he had a 2.95 ERA, 3.06 FIP, only gave up 3 home runs and a batting average against under 200. I think he'll probably be back in double A to start the season, but he'll be in a loaded rotation with the likes of Luis De Leon, maybe Michael Ferret, plenty of other guys that I can't think of the top of my head right this second. But I would imagine around the time, if say a Trey Gibson or a Levi Wells get bumped up to the majors, whether it's in the bullpen or they need a starter for a little while, I could imagine Blake Money getting up to AAA pretty quickly. And once he's in AAA, I think he's competing along the likes of those guys to be one of the next big starting pitchers for the Orioles. I think he's got the stuff. Might be like a half a grade less than the top of this new Legion cavalry that we got coming up the ranks here. But I think he's his days of being underrated are about to be over.
And his brother Cash Money is a catcher. That's just start. I think he's a freshman in college, so maybe in a couple of years that would be quite the battery. When I go back to our list, like I was always on the lower end just because I said at the time it was hard for me to get like a real read on like what his future role could be. What kind of pitcher could he be in the major leagues? How does he fit in this whole puzzle? And I felt like the Orioles were telling us how they felt about money by keeping him in Delmarva all year. 103
Braxton
innings.
Bragg too.
Yeah, that's where I got like, okay, once we learned about Braxton Bragg, and I was like, no, the Orioles actually did like him, but they felt like, oh, here's a guy who, where again, talk about the log jam and making sure everybody has the innings that they need. They just felt like it was best to, okay, yeah, we're not pushing you as hard if you stay in Delmarva, but you are going to start every 5-6 days. You're going to get 2 starts a week down there in Delmarva and be able to go 5-6 innings. And like, we don't have to worry about that. And they just felt like that was better for him. But for me, it's like Blake Money, he's listed at 6'7", 240 pounds. Like, he's not a JUCO and he's from LSU. So I just felt like, no, they're just, I don't know. Maybe they're not seeing it yet. I don't know. But he's gotten better and better and better at each level he's gone to. And it's a deep pitch mix. I think I don't know what he's topped out at. I know he's 95 plus. So he's got the velo, he's got the deep pitch mix. He got up to 121 innings last year as well. And you write off some of the numbers there. The best part is like some of his career best numbers have come in AA. And that wasn't a super small sample either. That was 60 something innings. He had like a career high swinging strike rate, a career low contact rate. Like, walks have looked great. The strikeouts have looked great at every stop. I'm interested to see where 2026 takes him. Like, is he going to continue? He's Rule 5 eligible at the end of the year. So, like, does he keep getting that shot? Does he get to AAA and find success? And the Orioles are like, this is one of our guys. And he kind of like surprises a lot of people. Or could he be one of the guys where hopefully things continue to progress well in the pitching front? Guys are healthy. We see this big log jam. Blake Money continues to pitch well. He's been in AAA for a little bit. He's pitching well. Could he even be like an under the radar, like prospect for prospect deal we see at the trade deadline? Or could a team like whoever's out of it, whoever's out of the race at that time, looks at Money and says, that could be like a back end guy for us over the next couple of years. And Money helps the Orioles get a upgraded major league roster piece at the deadline. Like, I don't know. I think he's pitched. His performance over the last year, though, has definitely warranted this strong belief that I don't know what role it's going to be still at this point, but whether it's here in Baltimore or with another organization, he's going to get a major league shot within the next year.
Yeah, he took a big step forward for me this past year. And like everything that Nick just said, when I saw him pitching at Delmarva in 2024, my sense was, okay, this is a guy that can take the ball every 5 days and be successful in low A. But, and some of this, I think it's just inherent bias in the way that we view prospects. But you see that and you think, okay, he was just drafted out of LSU. And even if it was in the 12th round, generally speaking, you would think a pitcher from an SEC school is going to put up good numbers in a full season of low A ball. But the stuff to me looks better last year, in particular the fastball. I really like the way that he adjusted to Double A, and I expect him to go back there to start next year, and he might end up pitching a good portion of the season there. But I think that he's more than capable of building off of what he did last year, and we'll start to hear a little bit more about him nationally as pitch data comes out in dribs and drabs next season, whether that's while he's at Chesapeake or after he gets up to Norfolk. But I think the days of him flying under the radar could be over soon.
Yeah, and the name alone, like if he starts having real success with a name like Blake Money, I think it'll be on the tips of everybody's tongue.
Kevin Harlan here. This Friday, the NBA on Prime crew has another thrilling NBA doubleheader. It tips off with an Eastern Conference showdown as Tyrese Maxey and the Philadelphia 76ers head to Madison Square Garden to take on Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks. Then it's Western Conference action. SGA and the defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder visit Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. It all comes your way this Friday on Prime. And if you're not a Prime member, that's not a problem. Sign up for a 30-day free trial to get started today. The Sixers and Knicks, the Thunder and Timberwolves. Coverage starts Friday at 6:30 Eastern only on Prime. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
All right, everyone, let's talk about drinking and driving, a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI because legal fees, time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that will change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Drinking and driving is a decision that will change your whole world. Things will never be the same once you get a DUI because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way your world could be irreversibly changed after drinking and driving. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You could face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one who could face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive could permanently change someone else's world, whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. Always plan for a safe ride home. The only decision that'll change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. It's never worth it to drive drunk. Don't risk it. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
I'll go to my candidates now, and I'll start with my hitter, and I'm going to stick with Delmarva's likely opening day lineup and go with Andrew Tess. And Tess had a really nice first season of pro ball, drafted by the Orioles in the 12th round of the 2024 draft. He made his debut in the FCL last year and put up pretty solid numbers across the board, hitting 256, 457 on base percentage, and 368 slugging percentage to go with a 141 WRC plus and an 18.1% walk rate compared to a 20.7% strikeout rate. And for a catcher, shows very good speed on the bases, stealing 17 bags in 21 attempts between the FCL and Delmarva. He got to Delmarva late in the year, but unfortunately, we only saw 11 games there before his season ended with an injury. A few things I like about Tess going into this year are that, one, he makes pretty consistent contact with the ball, so it's good judgment in the strike zone. And while that on-base percentage was bumped up a little bit by the fact that he was hit by the pitch so much last season, those are the kind of statistical anomalies that can happen in the lower levels of the minor leagues. And it doesn't mean that as the hit by pitch numbers hopefully dial back a little bit as he moves up, that we're going to expect the on-base percentage to come down in a significant way. I think that the judgment for the strike zone that he shows at the plate is for real. And the other thing is that this is going to be his first extended taste of catching in pro ball. He played in 65 games last year and was behind the plate for 35 of them. He's probably going to be Delmarva's primary catcher next year, so he'll get a lot of opportunities back behind the plate. For that reason, I would not be shocked if Tess spends most or all of next year at Delmarva. But he's the kind of player that I could see going there, hitting 260 to 270, putting up a 120 to 130 WRC plus, really making strides defensively behind the plate. And if he's able to do that at 19, we're talking about a player that's going to be moving up a lot of lists for the Orioles going into 2027.
I'm a huge fan of Andrew Tess. And honestly, some people just have a knack and a skill for getting hit by a pitch. Hudson Haskin, Brett Cumberland, we've seen it before, so don't rule that out either. But even if he doesn't, like 18% walk rate is not too shabby for a young kid. And actually, he got off to a really slow start in the FCL, but he was always walking. That never stopped. And then he really caught fire towards the end of the FCL season and then getting the bump up to Delmarva. And I watched 3 almost full games of him early in his Delmarva tenure. It was only 11 games, like you said, but I liked what I saw behind the plate, and I liked what I saw at the plate. So, yeah, Andrew Tess, big up arrow guy. I think this is a great selection.
And if you go back to like his pre-draft reports, I know he was, as you see with most Orioles draft picks and international signings, he was one of the youngest high school players in his class. And I think it was Joe Doyle that called him a model darling going into that draft year. And he had some prospect shine when he was on the high school showcase circuit, because I think he was a guy known for just punishing fastballs. So, yeah, I think defensively strong behind the plate, like you said. I think the pop times and the arm strength numbers are all great. And I don't know if it was Baseball America or who wrote the article that noted, he's got some accuracy issues. And I remember watching the game, and I wrote this in his recap article that I did like back in September. It was like that first game, I was like, I'm going to pay attention to his defense too. And he had like 2 missed throws to the third base side. And I was like, there they are. But he's a young kid. And like, I think this is like, I strongly believe the offensive performance like doesn't get enough credit, because I know it's the FCL and like Delmarva numbers, but you're talking about a high school kid who's playing his first pro year. So not only is he adjusting to pro life, but he's doing so as a catcher. He's working with God knows how many pitchers between those 2 levels. The language barrier, calling games himself from behind the plate. Remember, that was a huge thing for Creed Willems to learn and adjust to early on. But meanwhile, Tess still put up a 138 WRC plus across 2 levels as an 18-year-old. So, yeah, and I know it's also been written elsewhere about like his leadership and makeup are like off the charts. Like this is a dude on and off the field. So yeah, it's for his sake. I hope the hit by pitches do come down, because taking a beating behind the plate with the gear on and then again with the gear off can't be fun. But yeah, I think he kind of showed offensively the whole package in 2025, and like there's just so many catching prospects in the system, on top of the 2 guys in the major leagues right now. But he's going to, I think, continue to be overlooked until someone finally takes note of him. But yeah, he's going to be the quiet little gem that stays buried for another year or so, I think, in the system.
Yeah, and just to put the Orioles' catching depth into perspective going into next year, and this is if there are no trades from this position between now and the start of the season, we know in the majors you're going to have Rutzman and Basayo, Creed Willems probably getting bumped up to Norfolk. Ethan Anderson, after getting a taste of Double-A at the end of last season, is probably going to be the Bay Sox primary catcher next year. And then you'll have Caden Bodine and Ike Iris, who the Orioles, from all reports, are planning to have work behind the plate at least some next year in Frederick. So there's not going to be, at least initially, a lot of opportunities for Tess to move up. But I think that if he gets regular playing time and he's able to stick behind the plate at Delmarva, his prospect stock will rise nevertheless. And I'll go to my pitcher now. I'm going to
real quick. You forgot to mention the guy that actually got written up by Baseball America today, Yasmiel Buche.
That's right. Yeah. So he will probably be at Frederick with Bodine and Iris.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's long-term for the position, but for now.
It's another option. So there's more catchers beyond those guys, but looking at who could start next year is a good point, Bob, and more catching depth in this Orioles system. And I'll go over now to my pitcher, and it's a guy that has already started to get a little bit of buzz, and I think largely that's because he came over to the Orioles in the trade deadline, and that's Wellington Aracena. Aracena, from the time that the Gregory Soto trade was completed with the Mets, was sort of written up, not just locally, but nationally, as the guy to watch in that return, putting up very good numbers in low A with St. Lucie in the Mets system. He came over to the Orioles, and then after one start at Delmarva, was promoted to Aberdeen. He put up a strong finish there in the regular season. 2.35 ERA, 3.39 FIP in 23 innings pitched while striking out 24 batters and walking 15. And if you watch Aracena pitch, you can see the stuff right away as something that is really impressive. A mid to upper 90s fastball that goes along with the cutter, and a slider in the upper 80s that has sharp vertical movement. The key thing for him is going to be cutting back on the walks, because there's no question that he has pure swing and miss stuff. And while we don't have a lot of great batted ball data against him, from the eye test that I saw watching several of Aracena's starts after he came in the Orioles system last year, it seems like hitters don't square up on him that often when he's in the zone. I did want to point this out, though. If you're looking for a reason to believe that he can continue to get better with the command, his first strike rate was up to 41% last season, which at first glance doesn't look all that impressive until you consider that the year before it was at 38.5%. And if you go back to his pro debut in 2022, Aracena has actually been able to increase his first pitch strike rate by a little bit each season. So as he heads into his first full season Oriole, probably starting out at Frederick, I think the big things for him are going to be cutting back on the walks, making sure he's able to limit hard contact. And he could be one of those pitchers who, and we even saw this at Aberdeen last year with Trey Gibson, the back of the baseball card stats at high A weren't great. But when you dig a little bit deeper, you can see that he's improving the strikeout to walk numbers, and he carries that over to a breakout in Double A. So I feel like Aracena, if we're looking ahead to next year, is one of the guys you should have on your radar as a pitching prospect that could break out at multiple levels.
I'm very intrigued to see what happens with the walks next year, because that was really the only bugaboo there on his stat line. And I mean, what I liked as well, looking at his game logs earlier, he only had 40 innings in 2024 and 43 innings the year before that in 2023. So 83 combined innings the last 2 years. He got up to 92 innings in 2025 alone. And then I think it was August was just no control that month. He walked with 15 or 16 guys. It was some outrageous numbers. Not the great month. But his final start of the year was 6 innings, which he hadn't done since he was in the Dominican Summer League. 6 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. It's I don't know what one start tells you at the very end of the year against a team whose lineup could have just been done. They could have been dreaming of beaches and the offseason. But to more than double his career high in innings, and to go out and shove as well as he did after a subpar month before that, I just feel like that was an exclamation point at the end of the year and a nice little tease for what 2026 could happen. So yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see again. He's another Rule 5 guy as well. It's a massive list of the Rule 5 available guys, and he's one of the younger arms as well. So I think that has a whole nother wrinkle in this. But I mean, for the Gregory Soto deal, is looking better and better trade. Gregory Soto is a guy who was just meh. I was never a massive fan of his. To get a high ceiling guy like Aracena in the system is, we'll see. Do they keep him as a starter? Do they push him to the relief role? Do they trade him? I don't know which way he goes, but he knows I was looking at his pitch mix. We do have that stuff from when he was in St. Lucie. Thanks to that Florida State League, the A-ball league, where we do get some StatCast data, and the cutter and slider had a 42% whiff and a 62% whiff on each of those pitches, and minimal contact and production against both offerings. So I feel like there's the four-seamer may not really stand out outside of the velo, but you've got 2 elite weapons right there. Could that push him up in a bullpen role and move him up a little quickly next year? Maybe.
Ceiling's huge for Aracena. I'm very excited to see what he can do next year. I could see him, like you said, maybe transition to a bullpen role at some point and just speed to the majors very quickly, or he keeps working with his 3-pitch, 4-pitch mix, and he's a tweak away or some better command away from being one of the best pitch prospects in the organization. I love this pick. I hope Zach wins the prospect breakout bet for a year from now, because for Aracena and Test breakout, those are some pretty big breakouts.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to point out something I had noticed when the article came out, and we haven't even had a chance to talk about it off air, but all 3 of the hitters we identified are probably going to start next year in Delmarva. And maybe in the best case scenario for Lorenzo and Sanchez, perhaps they crack Double A by the end of the year. But I think regardless, we're looking at a group of players that are primarily going to spend this season in A-ball. Does that say more about our own personal preferences or what we look for? Or does that say more about how the Orioles farm system is stacking up right now in terms of offensive depth?
I mean, I think there's you look at last year's draft class, that's going to be Frederick heavy. So I think, and it was a college heavy draft class. I mean, even outside of your top 3 there, you still got guys like Colin Newman and Braden Smith and a couple of other guys as well. So like, I think it's just the depth. Like you talked about the catching depth, why Tess is probably end up spending much of the year down in low A. I think this farm system, it's not just like, it's even the infield that we had a lot of concerns about going into last season. Like it's a lot stronger across the system going into 2026. Again, trades by the time this gets released, by the time some people listen to this, could alter all of that. But I think right now it's just a matter of, yes, we do tend to I think enjoy the lower levels a bit more because that's more fun. Like nobody's talking about these guys. It's our chance to really dig in and watch and discuss and identify some breakouts before anybody else. But at the same time, there's some real dudes down there that are going to probably be held back a little bit longer than maybe they should, because typically the Orioles are aggressive with the lower level promotions. That may not be the case with some of these guys, especially after these college heavy draft classes that they've had.
Yeah, it's a great point. Also, we haven't seen Slater DeBrun, Cam Lee, Jaden LeRae. Sometimes I forget those last two are even in the system. But yeah, I think that it's crazy how fast the depth got built back up, and gotta love that about this front office. They're not scared to restock the farm system, keep us entertained, keep our value to you guys here as we discover these breakout prospects when it happens.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. The only other thing that I would add to that is that I know for us, and we've talked about this multiple times, it's hard for us to assess a breakout versus what is a national breakout, because if you had asked us, Aaron Estrada really broke out in 2024. But now the national buzz has made it seem like he broke out in 2025. So there's a little bit of proximity that we have to the system that I think skews this a little bit maybe, but still I feel pretty good about this crop of players.
I do. Did you guys consider anybody else for hitter or pitcher that you really wanted to write about but chose not to?
JT Quinn is a guy that I think is going to be a huge breakout, but I don't have enough data / visuals on him because I don't watch a lot of college baseball, but I still love him, and I think he's going to break out. And on the hitting side, I want to say I was pretty close to picking, who was it? I think it was Jamon Noel. That was my secondary pick, just because he repeated the DSL and did fantastic. But how real is it when you're repeating a level, especially the lowest possible level? But I do think his swing is just so pretty. It's so perfect. And I think he's going to just be a natural hitter. He's going to be I don't think he'll develop the power that Aaron Estrada apparently has, but I think he's going to be one of those smaller-ish, but just really good, pure hitters that we have some of.
Yeah, for me, on the pitching side, Aracena was kind of my clear front runner. I did think about Joseph Giroua and JT Quinn a little bit, but Aracena was kind of the guy that I knew in the back of my mind I wanted to write up. For hitters, I was really close to picking Brandon Butterworth or Austin O'Byrne, which would have skewed this a little bit because those are two guys that are probably going to start at Double-A. What I came back to for O'Byrne, though, and again, this is where the term gets a little bit subjective, was I thought O'Byrne had a great second half last year, and you can almost classify that as his breakout. But I know that until the strikeout rate dips a little bit, he's not going to get as much attention nationally. And I wasn't sure in anything that I saw that there was a reason to believe the strikeout rate was going to take a big step in the right direction next year. And I hope it does, because if it does, you're looking at a really, really good prospect. But I was close on him. I was close on Butterworth. But in the end, I felt like Tess was the more true definition of a breakout candidate.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes because I actually think O'Byrne, we probably talked about him as an honorable mention a year ago as a guy that could break out. And I feel like he did kind of have a mini breakout, but he didn't have that big breakout that could potentially come in 2026.
Yeah, O'Byrne was going to be the other guy. It's just he had 13 home runs last year with 64 stolen bases across two levels. I'll say I think he gets 20 home runs. I think, the strikeouts are going to be there, but if he continues to walk, he didn't walk at all once he got to Double-A, but that was only a 30-game sample. But I think He's spending half or more than half of the year in AA. I'll say 20 home runs, at least 50 stolen bases for Austin Overin next year. And people are like, oh, okay, here we go. Strikeouts are what they are, but kid's a masher. I think definitely more power in the tank for him next year.
Well, remember next year when Austin Overin has a 2070 season, and all three of us picked him as our breakout hitter of the year. And that does it for this episode. We're going to be back next week with our December mailbag. We're going to be taking questions about all things Orioles, including what else they might do this offseason, as well as looking at what lies ahead for some prospects in 2026. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon and sign up to become a member of our community at the $3, $5, or $10 levels to have access to our upcoming Top 50 Prospects Countdown. Bob, Nick, and I will be releasing one episode a day beginning in early January as we count down from player number 50 to player number 1 on our preseason Top 50. And patrons are going to have exclusive access to that content. As a reminder, you have to be a paying patron at $3, $5, or $10 levels. And if you're already a patron, but you want to bring an Orioles fan in your life onto the community, consider giving them a gift membership this holiday season. You can sign up as a monthly member, a custom month range, or as a yearly member and receive a 15% discount if you do so. So be sure to check that out. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.